Since the Brood War has happened, Kerrigan and her Zerg have essentially pulled back. We haven't heard from them in 4 years, other than little skirmishes. We put out a trilogy of books called the Dark Templar Trilogy over the past couple of years. So clearly, Kerrigan and the Zerg have been doing stuff, but on the grand stage of galactic machinations, she's been pretty quiet. So as this sequel really gets moving, we see pretty quickly the Zerg have returned with a vengeance. We're not entirely certain of what Kerrigan's up to or what she's seeking, but it's generally bad news for everybody involved when the Zerg start rapping on the door. I think this time around, when we wrote and developed the first Starcraft, I just love the idea of Raynor as kind of the one honest man in the universe, and I love the idea of this kind of honest cowboy dude being swept up in these events, and to some degree, his sense of justice, his sense of right and wrong, just innately who he is, factoring in, to these much larger events, without any superpowers or without any kind of magic gizmos. This one dude made a difference. In some ways, Ariel and Tychus were actually built to almost be the angels on either shoulder, like the little devil and the little angel. The weirder question is, ultimately, which way will Raynor go? If there are components of either character, the purely self-serving, wanton destruction of Tychus and the more selfless, altruistic element of Hansen, these are both things that exist within Raynor. He's as complicated as anyone you've ever met, ultimately. And while we ultimately know what he's after, what shape will his journey take? Just the idea of these kind of simple humans in the middle, that aren't always the most honorable, or effective, trying to scrabble for their identity in the middle is structurally something I really like about Starcraft. Tychus is an interesting character we developed actually a little bit later in the process. He kind of came out of a lot of cinematic ideas we were talking about. And Tychus essentially is an old war buddy of Raynor's. They go back a ways from their army days, which did not end real well. So they haven't seen each other in many years. It's argued that Tychus might have gone to prison to bail Raynor out of a particularly hard spot many years ago. So what must he think of that? Doing hard time for somebody, right? You owe me. You're like, well, do I? It's an interesting curve between them. And how that plays out, it will be evident over the course of the campaign. I think if we had taken this storyline and broke it down into novels, it could probably be fit into 3 long freestanding novels. It would best be served as probably something more like 9. That sounds crazy, but it's kind of crazy. It's quite big. But my favorite part, while I can't tell you what it is, I love the ending of this story. The ending of Wings of Liberty is one of my favorite moments that we've worked on in any capacity, in any franchise that Blizzard has done. I love the ending of this game. I love where it all goes, and what happens with our heroes. And I think it's a great starting off point for obviously the next chapter. It would kind of have to be to some degree, but. I apologize that I can't tell you what it is, but it just gives me this will sound a little canned, but story is important to us. Story is important to Blizzard. And there are other groups out there that do far larger stories and do giant grinding RPGs, and that necessarily isn't our kick. But so long as we're building games and so long as we're building franchises, stories so important. In terms of anyone can get off on a game. And we always hope that our design's very sound and that our balance is very sound, but I've just always felt since I was a youngster that if you can provide an emotional context for the game artifice, right, you've achieved something on a whole nother level in terms of someone responding to the product or responding to the game flow itself. Just want people to care, about the product ultimately in the best way. It's just story because we all get story. Story is pretty universal, and as long as we're at the con, we're gonna push that way no matter what product it is.